is a peptide to bring down inflammation. But although I used these continually for months and months, I still had chronic pain. So my experience with stem cell is
regenerative medicine is not an injection. It's not a one-time, here you go, you're gonna be fine, right? It's a process, it's a procedure, it's the long-term care.
If you're using BPC, it doesn't work for everybody. Things to help with bring down inflammation and repair stem cells that I feel they work.
Keeping that stem cell pool full as we get older is key to slowing the aging process. We have a longer quality of life.
If you look up stem cell on Google, you can't find stem cell. You can't use the word on Google.
Correct. So understand there's a difference between marketing capability.
Hi, this is Rich Gaspari, and I'm your host for Beyond the Muscle. And my next guest that I have is a really good friend of mine, George Mariano from American Medical Wellness. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rich. It's been a long time, huh?
It's been a long time.
and wow.
Now, this guy, I want to just tell you guys, this was my old training partner. He actually trained with me for the Mr. Olympia. So we have a long history together. Little did I know that this guy was actually not just a musclehead, he's actually had some brains. We have a lot of stories. We could have a whole podcast of just the stories of us training together in the gym and how crazy I was when I was younger. But we're going to talk a little bit more about science here. First off, what are your credentials?
Well, maybe I need to step back a little bit, and my background's in medicinal biochemistry and pharmacology. So, but ultimately where I started was, my uncle was a pharmacist. And I'll try to do this real quick, but I swore I was never going to go into pharmacy, right? Because I hated it, right? Just count pills all day, it was terrible. So for my first love, I went to school to be a systems engineer, so I developed software. However, my first job, or one of my first jobs out of school, was I worked for the National Board of Medical Examiners. And what we did there is we wrote the code to actually bring the USMLE tests live online instead of doing the Scantrons. You know how many times I took those tests? So ultimately, medicine was pulling me back in. So with that said, medicine pulled me back in. I went back to school. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I thought I wanted to be the guy that saw patients. But I quickly realized in school, I wasn't the guy that was going to save the world one patient at a time. So I recognized that it was going to be more academic, and I want to be the doctor that trains the doctors, right? To get this information out there, to perpetuate medicine. And ultimately, that's where I wound up in medicine and medicinal biochemistry. So, but I guess that's the 10,000 foot of where my background goes. So ultimately though, I'm still a bro, right? Yeah. Still started with you. You were my mentor back in the 90s and late 80s, right? Wow, it's a long time. So, I realized I was trained by the best, and then I recognized I can put those two things together. And this is what the problem
So you have a degree in pharmacology.
So medicinal biochemistry, yes.
Medicinal biochemistry.
Yes.
But you have a pharmacy. You make drugs now.
So yes, so yes, exactly.
So this is American Medical Wellness is your centers in Las Vegas.
Correct.
That you treat patients.
Correct.
We could talk about that. But you also actually are a compound pharmacy.
Correct. American Wellness Pharmacy.
So American Wellness Pharmacy is where you make medicines and drugs and all kinds of goodies that you make at your place.
Yeah.
And then I guess you decided, besides making this compound pharmacy, then you started to make your centers, or you partner with somebody to make your centers.
True. Not only did I understand the medicinal toolbox, but I also understood from a higher level of the application of those medicines. So understanding, or allowing these doctors to understand their medicinal toolbox, what's available to them to get the best patient outcomes. That was key, right? And not only did I know how to make the medicine, but how do you use them? What do you use them for? What's the indications?
So it's interesting because, like I said, George is a gym bro. He loved to train. We did some crazy stuff in the gym, and now applying science to now what all the things we did, maybe a lot of things we did because we just did them.
Right.
But you understand scientifically why they worked or didn't work.
True, right. So yeah, we did a lot of things that are anecdotal, right? We just did it because we knew that it worked.
Yeah.
But we didn't know why. And science didn't, with a lot of things, science didn't catch up. And then ultimately, as time went on, I wanted to know why. why when I eat this much protein did I gain more muscle? Why did when I did this many sets instead of that many sets did I gain more muscle or feel fuller or recover better or whatever? And the thing is that we knew it worked, right? Anecdotally, we knew it worked. It's just like about a lot of other things that we know it works, but the science behind it, where's the real proof? How do I really define this? And that's where my education came in.
So, as I said, he was my training partner back in the late 80s into the 90s. And then we kind of lost connection. He went on to go to school. I went on to do other things, start Gaspari Nutrition. And, it's funny how we reconnected. We reconnected through my athlete, Hide Yamagishi. He's our Japanese athlete. And he was training at that gym, and little did he know, although he knew that I sponsored Hide, he didn't know I had a relationship with Hide. And there's a whole other stories with me and Hide as well that I've done. And it's funny, I was on the phone talking to Hide, and then he goes, "Hey, I wanted to have you talk to this guy, George." And it's funny because 20, 30 years later, George and I are talking like it was only like yesterday.
True.
Which is funny. But I want to get into the subject matter of this show, and I want to talk about stem cells. And let me tell you a little bit about my experience. Now, first off, I've been training for 40 years. And of course, training for 40 years, my body got beat up. I have issues, degenerative discs in my neck. I talk about how I, ruptured a disc in my neck that caused me to get an artificial disc into my neck, because of my right side. Other issues that I have is I had knee problems. Actually, I had a chronic knee problem. My left knee was always bothering me. Loved doing legs, did really heavy legs back in the day, as we know. What happened through those years is I started feeling, always pain in my left knee. And I just work around the pain and just do what I had to do. But it was always an issue for me when I traveled or just now sitting in this chair, keeping my knees bent, I would feel pain. Or being on a plane for long periods, I would feel pain. Before I started legs, I had to really warm it up. Anyways, knowing that George had, American Medical Wellness, I came to your clinic. And of course, I started doing peptides. The BPC 157, before it was banned, we were doing that in TB 500 before it was banned. And then you got me on BPC, or what's the other one with the arginine attachment?
Pentadecapeptide arginate, yes.
Say it again.
Pentadecapeptide
arginate.
Yeah.
I started using that. And all of these are great because we're going to have another episode on peptides, but it's a peptide to bring down inflammation. But although I used these continually for months and months, I still had chronic pain in my left knee. Then I went to your center. Of course, like I said, if you guys want to go to a great place, American Medical Wellness, they have doctors on staff, do everything besides just handling muscle heads. They do a lot of other stuff that we could talk about what you guys do there. But it's right, if you're going on vacation to Las Vegas, you got to go to this clinic. A lot of cool stuff there, red light therapy, hyperbaric chambers, all kinds of cool stuff that we'll also talk about. But I went there because I want to take care of this pain. So the other thing we did is we took my blood and we centrifuged it. And we could talk about what's that called?
That's PRP.
So we did PRP, if you guys heard about PRP. Injected into my knee. Thought it was going to help. I thought maybe a little bit, but still I had chronic pain in my left knee. So then George says, why don't you try stem cell? Now, first off, guys, I thought stem cell could only be done outside the U.S. You hear, I'm going to talk about stories of Mr. Olympias that have had problems. They were beat up and they have injuries and they went to Colombia or they went to Turkey or wherever they went to go get stem cell therapy, which is the umbilical cord stem cell that they said they received. And they actually said, well, I think it worked. I'm not sure it worked. And because of this knee pain, I was like, I want to get stem cell, but I don't want to go all the way to freaking Colombia to go get it done. And then, George, you told me that you did umbilical stem cell therapy, which I didn't know was allowed in the United States.
So yeah, Rich, so that's where the misconception is, right? So believe it or not, stem cells, or regenerative cells, are federally regulated. The facilities that actually harvest these cells are federally regulated. They come with complete COAs, which are certificate of analysis, right? So you know what you're getting. They're coming from mothers that consent to live births, right? So it's an ethical.
So you're saying it comes from mothers that consent live births. So, okay, my son was born. Of course, they have the umbilical cord, they cut it. I mean, they didn't ask me or they didn't ask her, Hey, can we give away your umbilical cord?
So it's not given. So they harvest the cells. So it's mother's consent to the harvesting of the cells, both private and public.
Okay.
If, of course, you could have saved your son's cells.
And they asked
privately.
me, do you want to save this because later on in life there could be an issue that my son may have,
Or you.
or me, that we can use that umbilical cord
Right.
for stem cells.
Correct.
But I thought it was only for why they wanted to save his, because I thought because of the DNA that was only good for him. But you're saying,
Where do you believe that DNA came from?
that's what you can ask him. No, me, but I'm asking in general.
Yes.
If you're harvesting umbilical stem cells,
Yes.
anybody can use those umbilical stem. Like
Yes.
my son's umbilical stem cell, harvested, I give it to science.
Right.
Anybody can use that.
There's a harvesting process, right?
Okay.
So, and this is where I'm
So
going.
yeah. Is it your body doesn't reject it? This is the question. I'm asking.
Correct. So basically understand that when these cells are actually harvested, they're harvested through a procedure and they're harvested through a federally regulated facility, right? And then of course there's, as you know, CMGP, right? So they have to have good manufacturing standard practices and of course follow all these federal recommendations. But ultimately what you're going to receive from that process is, I know I have viable cells, I know how many cells, I know each lot, what's in there, and of course that there's no contamination, there's no issues, and of course I feel more comfortable that something's regulated in that sense than rather going to another country that may not be regulated or isn't regulated just because I'm going to get something cheaper. But again, that federal regulation makes me feel comfortable that I'm getting the product that I'm asking for. Plus, I'm in a regulated medical facility in the United States that I feel comfortable about the medicine being performed there.
And that's what's amazing is there's guys out there going to get stem cells in these foreign countries, and you're not sure what you're getting. You could be just getting saline solution, that you're paying whatever. He said, I only paid $3,000 for this stem cell,
Right.
But it could be just nothing that you're injecting into your body. There's no way of knowing.
True, and again, I don't want to naysay these other countries that their medical practices are unsound or anything like that. They just don't have the same federal regulation or the same regulations that we do in this country. Granted, I believe also that this country has a little bit too much regulation at times. That kind of stymies a lot of the medical research and to perpetuate medicine into the future. But ultimately, when we do go to these countries, we want to be able to feel comfortable that the product that we're getting, the medical treatment that we're getting is sound. The viability of the product that we're getting is sound. And obviously, God forbid anything happens. Where's the follow-up? Where's the accountability? If I get an infection, if I get sick, if I get some kind of immune response, who's going to take care of me? I come back to the States, I have to go to the emergency room. I have to go to another doctor to go and figure out exactly what I got. And and then of course, accountability, right? If something does happen to me, who do I go see? Who's
You're
accountable?
in a foreign country. You don't know where you're going.
Nobody cares, right? Yeah. And of course there's no standard to that. Here in this country, at least we know that the products are federally regulated.
Yeah.
They're controlled, okay? And you're coming to a clinic that actually is medically regulated. So now you have pre, peri, and post-treatment for you. You get the care. See, here's the thing that people don't understand. Regenerative medicine is not an injection. It's not a one-time, here you go, you're going to be fine, right? It's a process, it's a procedure, it's the long-term care of your wellness journey.
And that's the thing, when you take stem cells, what I've learned is it's not ibuprofen where you have pain and it goes away immediately. I'm going to tell you my experience. So I told you my story. I took PBC, PRP, and then you suggested, why don't you try stem cell? And you know that you get them in the United States. By the way, guys, you can get them in the United States, or I know you can get them from American Medical Wellness. You can get them, there may be in other places also. Got me on at the Olympia, I had this done. Now, you said it's systemic because I had it IV. He didn't inject it into my knee. He put it into my bloodstream.
Right.
And then what the stem cells do is they find the areas that are damaged. It could be other areas of my body that I didn't even know that maybe I had issues that were also, it went there as well.
Right.
But the stem cells, what George was saying is regenerative. So these cells went into an area that was damaged and slowly started healing that area.
Right.
So my experience with stem cell is It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in a week. It didn't happen in a month. I started feeling better in 3 months. After 90 days, I started noticing like, shit, I woke up and my knee doesn't hurt that much. I mean, it feels a little bit, but I'm feeling less and less. And through time, I just noticed that I don't have any pain in my knee anymore. I mean, I've had pains for 3 decades in my left knee, and it's totally gone. And I swear by stem cells that this thing for me was a miracle because I suffered from this pain. I didn't know maybe I needed surgery, but it actually healed my knee to the point that I'm able to train now. And it's actually, you tell me, like, slow down what you're doing because you're lifting too heavy.
You've been doing that since the 90s, so I mean, you haven't slowed down yet.
So I'm training and I feel great, you know, doing legs, doing leg extension without having any pain. So for me, it's amazing what stem cells can do. And as I was telling you guys, it takes not a week, a month, it could take months for you to feel the effects of stem cells.
Right. And let's understand the regenerative process, right? So this is what we have to understand. We have a stem cell pool, right? And obviously the stem cell pool diminishes as we get older. It's called aging, right?
So stop you there. So we have a stem cell pool. Even being older, do we still have stem cells?
Of course. But it's just the pool is actually diminished.
But isn't there, so I want people to understand there's sources of getting stem cells. I've heard of processes of getting stem cells from your bone marrow.
Correct.
So there's that process. So if I got stem cells from my body, is it 60-year-old stem cells?
Of course.
So now it's old stem cells
of
going into my body.
Of course.
But so then they're older cells. Where when I'm getting umbilical stem cells from an infant, now I have newborn.
Well, not an infant, right? So there's a difference between embryonic, all right, and umbilical, right? So you're not actually getting the stem cells from the infant, but you're getting the cells from the umbilical cord. All right, so just understand there's a little bit of a difference.
Okay.
But however, you are technically correct. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting from the umbilical.
You're getting a much younger source of those stem cells.
A much younger source. And you talk about, there's another thing that I think is out there is that you're getting stem cells. Why there was a big thing about stem cells is because they were coming from abortions.
Right,
which is illegal.
Yes,
which is illegal.
Yes,
that's called embryonic.
Embryonic abortions, right? Obviously, where the mothers didn't consent to this, they weren't live births, and the unethical practices. Let's just put it that way.
So but then that stopped.
That is illegal.
Okay, but is it being done in other countries?
I have no idea.
So we don't know that you could be getting it from another.
I have no idea how they're done.
So anyways, it is something that's regenerative. Now, here's another question. You can get these in the United States.
Yes.
And I've been to other centers where they don't give you stem cells, but then they give you something called exosomes. Okay. What is an exosome? What is a stem cell? What's the difference?
Let me try to put this in layman's terms, right? So if you understand what a regenerative cell is, the cell itself is the workhorse. It's the cell that differentiates. So these stem cells or regenerative cells, they know how to communicate with the cells around them, and they differentiate or change into those cells when they get in close proximity. So when these two cells come together, this one communicates with this one, and it basically says, "What are you?" "Oh, well, I'm a muscle cell." "Okay, I'm gonna be a muscle cell too," right? And
so it turns into a muscle cell.
So that's the actual workhorse of the stem cell. Now, what is an exosome?
Yeah.
Think of the exosome as the scaffolding. Like, think of a carpenter has to build a wall, right? Well, they need to put up a scaffold, right? So they can start building it, right?
Yeah.
And so if I were to define the two different things, the stem cell does the work, where the exosome is the instructional manual, right? So it provides the instructions of how to build this wall or how to build that tissue, or, is it bone? Is it muscle? Is it my liver? Whatever that is. And those exosomes provide those components to give the instruction of how this cell should differentiate.
So then why are clinics injecting? Is it the same effect that these exosomes are healing or regenerating a certain area that's damaged?
Again, they coincide, right, with each other, right?
So do you need both?
That would be the best practice, yes.
So mixing stem cells with exosomes
yes,
would be the best.
Absolutely.
Now, what did you get?
It's like buying a table at IKEA, right?
Okay.
And you buy this table and you got to put it together. Okay, great. Well, I got the table. I got all the pieces. I don't have a manual. What do I do?
Yeah.
right? So obviously we have instruction manuals in our body that allow us to understand, or these cells to understand how they differentiate. But it's always nice to have those additional components to be able to provide that mechanism so that the inflammatory processes and these processes that go along with cell differentiation are there. And
so will you get an effect by injecting just exosomes?
Of course, you'll get probably more of an immediate effect that way from an anti-inflammatory standpoint.
So it'll bring down inflammation to the area that's damaged.
But now you would need those cells for the regenerative process to occur over
to make it heal.
Correct.
So obviously, stem cells goes even further. I mean, where's the future with stem cells? I mean, I hear science that eventually you could take stem cells and make a liver.
Absolutely.
Or make a heart.
Absolutely.
And, so someone who needs a heart can just, have this thing incubated and make a heart for this person. And it's going to be the heart that he's not going to reject, like getting a heart transplant.
True. Right.
How far are we away from that?
We're not quite there yet, right? They're not selective enough to be able to do that, but we're getting there now. Of course, with a lot of these mechanisms and being able to alter DNA, we can actually put cells proximal to what we need or build the components that we need from a cellular standpoint. But stem cell therapy isn't quite there, but there is future promise going in that direction. Being able to harvest organs and produce organs and different components of the body. It's almost like the regenerative process of not almost like it is, I heard if you chop off a lizard's tail, right, it'll actually grow back. Same kind of.
So we're able to eventually do that with stem cell therapy, or stem cell, where we can just make a liver or make a kidney or make a heart.
We have seen in practice from a dentistry standpoint that we've actually been able to grow teeth, and bone tissue, right? So again, stem cells differentiate into all tissues of the body. It's how we develop as an embryo in the womb. Okay, and this is how we grow. This is how we become who we are.
And it is a live cell.
Of course.
It's a live cell.
Of course.
So this cell that you get, is this kept frozen? Is this kept it's dormant, frozen?
Not that it's dormant, but it keeps it fresh, so to speak. Keeps it live, right? Obviously, the cold component, then we get too far into chemistry, but it slows cellular degeneration, right? So keeping something frozen keeps it more viable.
So then this stem cell can be kept, and you guys have stem cells, and it is an expensive therapy.
In this country, it is more expensive than other countries, and that's provided the fact that number one is our medical care is more expensive. We have more overseeing regulatory bodies that cost money to provide that regulation. But overall,
is it limited because you have to get these umbilical cords?
It limits most people's availability at this point because of the price or the price point. But ultimately, what's the price of the investment in your body, right? I don't know. I've never really tried to put a cost on that. I thought it was priceless.
I agree. Listen, guys, if you're taking all these different BPC and TB500, and we're going to talk about that because you get them from websites. You don't even know if they're real. But you're getting all these, things to help with bring down inflammation and repair. But here is stem cells that I feel they work.
Yes.
It's been proven that they work. And now more and more, you're going to see more and more usage of stem cells for repair. Do you believe that stem cells can eventually be used? You hear about people with, I got an example. I have nerve damage from the ruptured disc in my neck. I have atrophy in my right side. I tell people all the time, I'm trying to get my strength back into my right arm. I've noticed a slow increase. My right arm is getting stronger. It's starting to come back. I'm able to contract it more. So do you believe those stem cells went into that nerve that was damaged?
Absolutely. So again, these cells, they differentiate into all cells in the body. Going back to what I originally said about the stem cell pool diminishes and what's what we call aging. So mitotic behavior slows down, and that's just cellular turnover, how quickly we can repair and recover. So as this pool becomes diminished, then those cells aren't, there's no cells, there's no components, there's no bricks to build the house, right? And keeping that stem cell pool full, now our body can help, it has the component to be able to regenerate. And these are all cells: bone tissue, muscle tissue, heart tissue, nerve tissue, brain tissue.
So you can even help the brain?
Of course. And this is the thing, they differentiate into any cell.
Now, getting this therapy done, I did it in October. I was telling you, like, George, this feels great. I want to do it again in March. And you like, well, how you feel? I go, I feel great. You don't really need to do it again if you feel great. I waited all the way into June to get it done. And I still felt great. I felt, maybe I was feeling a little bit. I was just kind of, maybe it was more in my head, but I was feeling like maybe my knees bothered me a little bit. But I actually went and had the treatment done again. So October into June, without doing any BPC or TB500 or any type of peptides that I needed to take before for pain management.
Right.
So for anyone getting the treatment, although you may call it pricey, but how much is it to get rid of pain? And if you have to do some type of medication month after month after month, that adds up to maybe the same, price.
Right.
And it may not even work. Some of the stuff out there is just masking pain. If you're on a painkiller, obviously that's just masking a pain.
Right.
Or if you're using BPC, it doesn't work for everybody.
True.
There's another thing. It worked for me. Great. Does it work for everyone?
Again, medicine, this is why we call it practicing, right? And yes, everybody's individual. So things work differently biochemically, and we understand the mechanism. We understand what's supposed to happen, but the individual's progress or outcome may be different, right? And it really depends on the amount of damage, the site of damage, the body, the genetics, the DNA that we're really dealing with, right? So everybody is on that level is an individual and can get different individual results. But ultimately, as you said, you had multiple treatments. Keeping that stem cell pool full as we get older is key to slowing the aging process. It's not going to get better as we get older. So the more often this stem cell pool is regenerated, the slower the aging process, or the better the body recovers and heals.
So it is an anti-aging procedure.
Longevity. Anti-aging has a negative connotation, right?
Yeah. So longevity.
But yes, exactly. And this is if this process where we can keep this pool full, we have a longer quality of life because our body can regenerate better. So that's key. Now, should I do this once a year? Should I do this twice a year? Should I do it quarterly, every 3 years? Really depends on you. Really depends on the individual. Right.
And because you told me, how do you feel? I said, well, I feel great. You don't need the treatment yet. So I waited, and I said, okay, it's October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. So 8 months later, I had the treatment done again.
And now we also have epigenetic testing. We can also see and rate the body's epigenetic values. I mean, like biological rather than chronological aging, and different factors of what we can test in genes to see how your body's aging. Right? And is it aging faster than your chronological age, or can you slow it down? And obviously this is another objective testing that we can do other than the subjective testing to say, hey, Rich, how do you feel? Right?
I mean, definitely, like I said, I wake up in the morning, normally wake up stiff.
Yeah.
And I feel less stiffness overall in my body. Like I said, the pain in my knee is practically gone, right, or it is gone. And I'm touting it to my friends and telling people this is like a miracle cure, to what I had for such a long time.
Right.
And it's just so surprising that the population is ignorant to know that it's available here. Here's another thing is, if you look up stem cell on Google, you can't find you can't use the word stem cell on Google.
Yes.
That's another thing.
So understand there's a difference between marketing capability and what is medically sound, right? And from an FDA, what the regulations are, what the true medicine is. Obviously, Google and Facebook and Instagram and all this social media, they're privatized companies, right? So they don't want to take the burden on them to say, well, that's illegal. You can't do that. You can't do this, right? So they basically say, we're not going to allow you to market those types of products on our private company. So their marketing rules have nothing to do with what the FDA and medicine says that's regulatory regulations in this country, right? So the two different things that we're talking about. There's a lot of things that you can't say on Google or Instagram or all this other stuff. There's no basis in medicine. Why?
So with your centers, how do you advertise this treatment? What do you call it?
Well,
and this is what I want the audience to know, because if you're out there looking to get stem cell and you're Googling stem cell, you're not going to find it.
No, well, not that you're not going to find it. You'll find it out there. But ultimately, to really truly understand what stem cells are, they're regenerative cells. They're
regenerative cells. So it would be called regenerative cell therapy.
Regenerative cell therapies, pluripotent cells, right? These are terms, and of course, extracellular matrix that, we can actually regenerate and revive cellular regeneration through these cells that differentiate. So there's other words that we can use just because these keywords can't be used on Google or whatever. Again, exosomes, right? Vesicles. We can use, there's different terms that mean the same thing. Unfortunately, the public knows these buzzwords, right? So it's real difficult and it makes it real difficult from a marketing and advertisement standpoint. But I think marketing and advertisement goes back to, and listen, I'm not a key expert on marketing advertisement, but it goes back more to word of mouth. Rich, here's the thing. You feel great, right? And ultimately, what's that worth to you? It's gold.
It's worth a lot. It's gold. And like I've been, telling a lot of people,
right?
I posted on my social
media. So
media.
that's better than Google.
Yeah, because Google, that's organic reach.
Right.
With people finding out, because when someone experiences that feeling, and I can tell you, I'm a testimonial to the treatment of stem cells, that I've suffered from pain for years and now it's gone away.
Right.
That's more than anything, that it's coming from a person. And it's not because you're my friend or anything. I've seen a difference of what it did for me.
Right.
So it's something that you guys, if you want to get stem cell, I highly recommend. If you're going on vacation, you want to take a trip to Vegas to do a little bit of gambling, and you want to come to American Medical Wellness, come over to, your center and you can get the treatment. Of course, you guys, like I said, you have doctors that can look at a lot of different things. Like you said, your place offers so much.
Yes.
I mean, some of the stuff you said you offer is like, which is kind of cool. When I went to your center, you're getting hyperbaric chambers.
Yes.
Which, if you guys seen some of the high-end athletes are using hyperbaric chambers, or even, I know that people with cancer have used hyperbaric chambers to push oxygen into the muscle to kill off the cancer.
Increase cellular regeneration.
Increase cellular regeneration. Red light therapy. I've been in his place, and they have a tanning bed. It's these red lights you could do. And what does red light do? It has another effect of,
again, cellular regeneration, blood flow, oxygenation.
There's some really cool stuff.
Yes.
So if you're out in Vegas, come over to American Medical Wellness. Come see George Mariano.
Yes.
And I think you're really going to get some great treatment there, besides just going to Vegas and gambling.
We can do that also.
But that concludes our episode of Beyond the Muscle. Thank you so much for being on the show, George. And we're going to have a lot of other shows that we're going to talk about some other subjects.
I appreciate it, Rich. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.